Great rising. I was having a conversation last night that it's a conversation I feel like I have a lot, you know. There's some times when people will say things or people will act a certain way, and I don't react in the way that people think that I should. And some people think there's like something wrong with me, like, oh, you don't have a backbone, you're not standing up for yourself. And that's not the reason at all. It's that I have an energy budget, and some things aren't worth my energy. And particularly what I'm talking about is when people talk shit, you know. And for some of you who like, oh my goodness, I'll be cursed, I'm just gonna make a little note, like, that is like my go-to word. And I was thinking about it, and it's probably because it just means poop, which is waste, and it's just like things that your body doesn't want. So what I don't want is shit, like and I discovered this a long time ago. Of course it takes time to integrate, but in high school, right, where most of us are experiencing some sort of drama or rumor, we're trying to navigate it as teenagers. And there was this song, and it goes, talk your shit, you're only making me famous, you ignoramus, so dangerous. And so it's like silly and kind of petty, but it was something that also stuck out in my mind. It's like, yeah, why does it matter if people are talking so much? Like, they're literally just making people more aware of you, and it might be in a negative light, but once those people meet you, know the real you, like, they're not going to believe it. And I've had people over the years even come up to me, and there's this one particular girl. She had started working at a place that I was working at, and it was months before she like really would open up and talk to me. And it's because we were working a shift together, and I didn't think anything of it. Like, I knew that the girls were petty on the team, and they always had something to say, and I could never do anything to make them happy. So I just like stopped trying to get along, and I just did my own thing. And so this girl comes up to me after a shift, and she was just like, you know, everything they said about you is wrong. In my mind, I'm just like, what? And I told her, I was like, what did they say about me? And she told me some of the things, and she's like, none of that is true. She's like, I've met you and I've talked to you, and she's like, I don't see any of that. And then I started putting pieces together. It's like, oh, like, these people are saying certain things about me, and like wondering why they would have those feelings, and, you know, going through that whole thing. And I just took it as information. And then over the years, I've had some other experiences where one particular one really affected my life. You know, I was in a really long relationship, and when we split, friend groups just stopped talking to me, and I didn't quite understand why. It's like, whoa, I've been friends with these people for almost a decade, and they're not talking to me anymore. And I wonder, like, what was said and what's going on, because none of these people talked to me about it. And over time, I find out what was said about me, and it hurt. And I think mainly it hurt because I was like, whoa, so these people think that I would do that. They clearly don't know me. And I think I'm okay with this friendship leaving, because I don't want my friends to think that I'm somebody who do things like that, you know? And 3 years later, the person who said all this stuff about me apologized. They sent me this huge message that was just like, I'm so sorry for everything that happened over these years. I appreciate everything that you've done for me all of that time, and just like, we're doing well wishes. And it made me think in that point, like, I was so glad that they were at that point of healing, because it did hurt that, you have a falling out and then you hurt another person, and because they're hurt, they're acting through their wounds, and they're just creating more and more of these ripples of pain radiating from themselves. And so I'm just like, wow, this is great. And also, I still have my boundaries. Like, I'm so glad that you're in that healing mode, but still stay away from me, in a nice way. Of course, I worded it. But it was a healing moment for me too, to realize, hey, me not acting out of hurt and pain from the situation still yielded in a result, because that person is the one who had to walk around for 3 years with all of that guilt of what they had said just about someone who literally just loved them and cared about them and wanted the best for them and for myself. And I think the bigger message here is that we're not enemies. Like, as humans, we are not enemies. There are greater enemies that use all of these different tactics to divide us, to categorize us so that we separate ourselves, when we are all from one source consciousness. We are literally fractals of source. And so when somebody's even a little bit different, and it's beautiful because they're just a different reflection of you from the great almighty. And so whenever people become enemies and they're acting out of their wounds, it's really hard for me to get triggered and act on it, because I'm just like, whoa, I see this person's pain. And in the past, as most of us do, we see somebody hurting and then we want to change ourselves or shift a certain part of our being to make their suffering less, but then we cause more suffering for ourselves. And it's honestly better for the energetic ripple, for you not to get caught up in that frequency, for you to just recognize that we are all one. We are all here on some sort of assignment, and sometimes we make contracts with other people so that they can learn certain lessons and go through certain karmas, and same for ourselves when we're going through these things. And some people just have to process it differently, and so acting out those shadows or those wounds, that's part of the process for them, or for you. And the thing that you can really do is just pray for healing. See people for their shadows and love them for it, because love is always the thing that heals. It might not be right now, but it could be in the future. Loving them and also loving yourself enough to put up boundaries so that you don't continue to get caught up in this painful ripple. An example of this is, there have been several moments over time where it's happened again. Like, people will be really caught up in their wounds or really caught up in some sort of social opinion, and they're trying to sort out the opinion for themselves, and so they have this really strong stance, and then they want you to be on this stance as well. And if you're not getting caught up in that social bubble, and you're just truly coming from love and understanding, you could say everything you want to rebuttal whatever they're saying, and they will still find a reason to be triggered. And it's really best to just remove yourself and let the person process it on their own, because sometimes, even though they're having all these opinions towards you, they really just need to sit with themselves and figure out what they really think about the situation. Like, come up with an opinion for themselves, not based off of like what another person says and then trying to prove that right. I mean, you want people around you that see you for you, love you for you, in your authenticity. And maybe if you do something wrong, wouldn't it be nice to still have somebody love you through that, so you can heal through that? someone that knows that you are human and they are human and they're not perfect and you're not perfect, and the only way we can get through with a minimal amount of suffering is if we stand together for it, if we see each other from an objective standpoint and you're like, hey, I'm not taking sides, you know, and I'm also not a mediator. I'm here for you, and I will help you through your healing. I will help you elevate. I'll help you process this. I may help another person elevate and process whatever they're going through too. And I love you both. It's kind of the concept of plants, right? And honestly, even any living being, we all thrive off of some sort of nutrient. And if you give a plant water, it'll continue to grow. You give it sunshine, it will continue to grow and thrive, depending on what that plant needs. And sometimes that plant needs something different in a certain season. Sometimes it might want less water, you know? And sometimes that plant's leaves may need to die and shed, fall away, so that it can conjure up new energy and, you know, create new leaves for the next season. Because the suffering that we experience as humans, is temporary. It can be temporary if you don't allow yourself to stay in that lower spiral. And also, another way of plants is if you start trying to pour Kool-Aid on it, you know, like something toxic, not natural. Sure, it has some water content in it, so it can hydrate them a little bit, but all the extra gunk that you're feeding it, it's got to come out some way, right? And so, however plants excrete things, let's say in the human body we excrete things through our pores, and so like it might come out through pimples, or it could come out through your sweat, or it could come out through your digestive tract, or maybe your organs are working extra hard to filter it, and you know, some of this residual stuff gets stuck in your body because it's like, there's too much of it. It's like, okay, so the plant, the being, takes in some of this poison and then it tries to excrete it. And if you're just like, oh, let me scoop up some of this poison, add it to some more water and give it back to you because this is what you're resonating at, it's just like, well, that's perpetuating the problem, you know? Like, stop giving the plant Kool-Aid. Give the plant water. Hold your hands on the plant and send it the energy of love and peace, and pray for guidance from their guides to help them through it. Sometimes you just need a hug, you need compassion, some sort of connection. You can even be with someone and not even say anything. It's just you having presence there. Did you hear that song that passed by? Come and get higher, loosen my lips, pull me down hard. It's literally like, let's just elevate together and let's connect, you know? Let's not get stuck in all that stuff. Another way to think about the situation is that, you know, sometimes it hurts and there's that natural tendency to want someone to get karma, and I think that might come out of wanting the person to learn to feel the repercussions of whatever they've acted on, because sometimes that's the only way somebody can learn. And I would say pray for healing. But if you do have those feelings, just know that, like, the divine takes care of that. There is nothing that the divine does not see. You do not have to do anything to that person. The divine will help guide them in whatever way that they need to heal. And sometimes that healing is by them getting a serving of what they've already given out, but that's not for you to do. You do not need to be that hand that's giving the dish. Do not do that, because you are giving yourself more karma. You are exacerbating the suffering. And the divine can do it in a just way. The divine can do it in a way that is very direct and particular to that person. So don't react in that way. Don't react in that way if you love yourself, resist. And if you get really fired up when somebody does something to you, know that that's a program, and you can reprogram yourself through habit. Just keep doing the same thing. Keep resisting. And over time, it gets easier. Over time, somebody can do something to you, and you can go up and still have an interaction with that person without them even knowing that you know what they did, that you know what they said. And it's because you're not coming from a place of judgment. You just see them for their shadows, and you love them for their shadows, and you have your boundaries. So I think that's really what the message is. And also, the truth comes out. The truth always comes out. And so you don't have to say anything. There have been times that I know somebody is saying something about me, and I just let it happen, because I know that the person that they are, having that conversation with, sure, they don't know what to believe, and they can take sides, or can do whatever, but after being with that person long enough, they can make their own judgment call. The truth always comes out. You just keep shining in your authenticity. So, on that note, I hope you guys have a beautiful day. It's so wonderful outside right now. And I love the sound of these. There's a bunch of words on it, and the first thing I saw was grace, and then I saw fear, and then the word see. So that's the message. See what it is. See people for what they're going through. And don't let fear be the thing that helps you navigate through it. Have courage and navigate it with